Okay, well, once again, I'm Colin Schoonover. I work for One Gas in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And One Gas is a utility natural gas distributor serving customers in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. I also have the privilege and honor to serve the Oklahoma Business Ethics Foundation and to work with a lot of the students on your campuses, and I really enjoy that. And so I will do my best to moderate today's panel, and I will ask each of our guests to introduce yourself, speak a little bit about your company and what that company does or its industry, and then describe your position or role within that company.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? So I learned very quickly that you run to the front of the table so you don't have to be first. So I will take that. I too am from Tulsa. I work for WPX Energy. Not too many people know who that is. I hope you do. Okay. We spun off of Williams a few years ago. We are the production and exploration segment of Williams. We are now WPX Energy, standalone company. We are so excited to have our new CEO that came out of Oklahoma City, Rick Muncrief. He is definitely, when the gentleman was talking, he is definitely full of integrity and wants our company to do that as well. We actually are in several different states. We are part of the Bakken, which is in North Dakota. We are in San Juan Basin, which is in New Mexico, Aztec, New Mexico. We also are in Denver, and we also are in Parachute, Colorado. The really awesome thing about the Parachute, Colorado is we do have a rig that's out there that runs all off natural gas. It's called the Niobrara or the Beast, if you work for us. And then we also have a few rigs in Pennsylvania as well, and in Wyoming. But I've been with the company a couple years. I'm a senior recruiter, so I basically support the Parachute and San Juan, Tulsa, and Denver offices. So I love it. It's a new industry to me. And I'm really excited to be part of the panel today, what I've heard. I'm so excited as a recruiter, so I cannot wait to see individuals that have been involved in the Ethics Bowl. So.
Well, my name is Shad Glass. I'm the Vice President of HR and Organization Development for Kimray Incorporated. I brought something for everybody. I've heard that if you're a horrible speaker, if you give something away, it doesn't matter. So just in case, I have something to give away. We are a manufacturer of control equipment for the oil and gas industry. And we are just very excited to be able to participate on this panel and to represent the organization. I feel very passionate about this. That's why, even though I'm nervous, I'm here because I feel strongly about ethics and integrity. I oversee communications, wellness, payroll, HR, organizational development, our chaplaincy program, a number of other things that's not even worth mentioning because it's just all kind of eclectic. But basically, we're the service providers to our organization and whatever the needs are for the employee from cradle to grave and everything that can go on in their life. And so we oversee that, or I oversee that. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I am Pam Fountain Wilkes, and like Shad, I should have brought all my pens and promos in out of the trunk because I think I missed you guys' classes in college where they do the public speaking and the presentations and all that. So I've tried Toastmasters and a number of other things since then to try to overcome it. But so bear with me. But I own a company called Principal Technologies, and we've been in business for just under 16 years. I started the company with a desk and a phone, and we do professional staffing and recruiting. So we find technology, engineering, accounting, HR, and administrative professionals for many of the companies in Oklahoma. Fortunately, I'm sitting here with a client here, and Colin is also a client, and so I'm in good company. But our situation's a little bit different than the other HR folks on the panel because we are referring people out to clients. So basically, when we do that, we're in effect endorsing them and saying that we have qualified them, we've done our due diligence, and we've checked everything we can about this person, and we believe they are a great candidate, and so we're submitting them to you as our client. So it's a little bit different situation than when we're hiring for my internal staff, which would compare to these guys and the work that they do. I've been with the Oklahoma Ethics Foundation and Consortium, been involved for probably 6 or 8 years now, and have served on the foundation for the last 5 or 6 years, been involved in a lot of different challenges. I've been to the regional, been to the nationals, I've served as a judge, I've served as a moderator, I've served as the copy person that put all the packages together. So, I've done a little bit of everything and have just thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to see these students step up and do the work that they do to participate in these challenges. It is really amazing. So, looking forward to your questions and hand it to you.
Well, I got voluntold to be here. No, not kidding. I'm just kidding. No, my name is Shannon Hebert, and I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for Enterprise Holdings, which is Enterprise Rent-A-Car, National, and Alamo. We purchased National and Alamo in 2009, and we actually have a headquarters here in Oklahoma City, and we oversee 6 states, and so we have 2 other regional locations in Shreveport and Wichita, Kansas. So, and I have a number of HR staff that work in those particular divisions. We have kind of a unique, I don't know if it's unique, but we mostly primarily hire our entry-level management trainees. And we do have entry-level accountants as well, so we kind of have a business management track, and then we have the management trainee track. And so we promote from within. So it's super important for us to get the right employee in the very beginning, because as they come in, we want to be able to get that person that's going to have that character and integrity and be a leader in our company and get an advance from there, basically. So that's kind of how our company kind of works. Obviously, we're a lot larger, I think, than Jack Taylor ever thought we would be, but we're doing very well. I've been involved with the Oklahoma Business Ethics Consortium for 11 years and was one of the original members. And I've been doing the foundation piece for about 3 or 4 years now. And I as well have served as judge and moderator and stapler and packet put together and a number of things. And it's been really fun. The experience is very good because the students really amaze me. The first time that I got to judge one of these competitions, I was completely inspired. I had never been involved in anything like that when I was in college. I wouldn't even had the intellectual ability, I think, to do anything like they were doing. Like the presentation skills are so articulate and just so well prepared. It was a really nice thing to see, and especially to when you go to Texas and you actually come out and you just win the whole thing. I mean, it's really awesome. So, but we did it in a very ethical way. So, but I'm excited to be here too, and so we're looking forward to our questions.
Let's hand the microphone to Shad. You're going to get our first question. So would you share your insights about the importance that ethics and character play within the Kilmray culture for us?
It's very important. The cost of hiring the wrong person is too great because you have a change to your culture. And we have a culture that we're very proud of. It's taken us 65 years, 66 years next month, it took that long to earn that reputation. And to bring in the wrong person, a person of poor character, they can unravel what took 66 years to develop. And so for us, we really see that as being a way of protecting the culture as well as perpetuating that culture. And it's just vitally important. Everything we do, it's relationally oriented. When we talk about ethics and character, that's at the heart of it. It's relationship. And so that is what I have found to be just a great predictor of one's success is competence and character in equal proportion. And so for us, that's what we're striving to ascertain from a potential applicant that wants to work for us, is, are they a good fit? It's not just the competencies that has given them the opportunity to sit in front of the hiring manager, but do they have the character to be successful and really to achieve true achievement, and that's through the character. The example I like to use is that's an analogy. It's not mine. In fact, I think Dr. Meller, while I was studying for my MBA here at Oklahoma Christian, he drew up on the board this bicycle, and the back wheel, all the spokes had knowledge, skills, and abilities, different things that were written on it. And it's important because that back wheel is attached to the bike chain, and that drives and gives you the power to go wherever you're going to go. But it's the front wheel that determines where you're going to end up. And he says that front wheel is a lot like character. So he says, look at all the spokes, and you can just put a different character quality. Well, Kimray's, we've identified 49 that we think are important. It's not exhaustive, it's not conclusive, but it's a good start. And so he says, you have those character qualities on all the spokes of the front wheel. He says, now which wheel is the most important? I mean, you need both of them. So for us, we need character and competence in equal proportion. That's why ethics and integrity are important.
Thank you. I would ask the same question to any of the other panelists who would like to address that in their organization.
I'm going to fight it. No, I'm sorry. I was going to say it's really important to us, being a federal contractor, that if we do not have individuals that are going to do the right thing all the time, we could actually lose our contract and detrimental to our company. Not only do we have federal contracts, we deal with Indian reservations, we deal with the Land Bureau management. We also deal with landowners that let us go onto their property. We do pay them, but they do that. We also need to have everyone that come in to be open to change and a new challenge. If they're going to come in and just do one piece, like if I'm going to come in, I'm only going to do recruiting, I'm not going to assist the training and development or benefits department. Why should I be there? We need somebody who's open to do several different things, which I think is what several individuals, also when you're going out into the community and volunteering in our school that we mentor with, or in the community and do volunteer work, or even wear a WPX hat or shirt, we need to make sure that they are going to uphold that. We don't want people getting speeding tickets all over the place or DUIs, which does happen several times, and in our candidates. So we really check that out.
So for my company, Principal Technologies, one of the biggest concern or consideration that I like to give to ethics and character has to do with my internal staff, and that is our internal recruiters. And the main thing about that, the reason it's so important that they are just chocked full of character and ethics is, number one, because they have to evaluate all of the candidates that we send out to our clients. And if you don't possess that character quality or that trait, you can't really be expected to spot it in someone else. And so that's a primary consideration. The other thing, as far as ethics and character goes, is as we're evaluating people, they'll tell you what you want to hear, of course, and you have to really become pretty intuitive and astute at reading between the lines, knowing when to dig deeper, knowing when to ask the right questions. And, we certainly, can't validate, every character of every person that we work with, but it is important that the people that are evaluating those people understand that character and that integrity. A lot of what we do is we influence a process between the candidates making a decision about a job offer and the clients making a decision about offering a candidate a job. And so it's very, very important that the right things are disclosed and things that are protected and part of privacy law are respected and maybe not disclosed because you can't. So there's just a lot of gray area. I always say in our business we operate 80% in the gray. So there's a lot of that area that requires a lot of collaboration between our staff and saying, okay, what's the right thing to do in this situation? It's different than anything we've dealt with before. And there's not always hard and fast black and white rules. It would sure make it a lot easier if there were.
Yeah, I agree. At Enterprise, we have our Jack Taylor founding values, and we have 8 of those. And one of those is our brand is our most important thing that we own, and that speaks a lot to integrity and ethics and character, and that we're looking for those folks that are willing to make difficult decisions but do the right thing, take the high road when they come across something that they're struggling about their decision. We do a lot actually within my specific group that to hopefully help people make those right decisions, because they come to us and they don't know anything about the rental car business. And our brand is to teach them basically how to run a business, and ultimately we feel that once you get to a certain point with our organization, you could probably run your own company. But you're doing it now with the backing of a very successful company. And so we actually kind of put those scenarios out there, and how you talk about the case studies that we have. I felt like that was so interesting, because I thought that they were case studies. I never really thought that they were like completely real. I thought, these can't be completely real, no. But sure enough, a month after one of them, I saw it in the Wall Street Journal that a decision had been made on one of those cases, and I was just really surprised. And so I thought that was a really great idea. And so that's what we started doing. We actually started putting together scenarios, common, unethical decisions that some had made in the past, and just started putting it out there in front of everybody, letting them know that this is the wrong decision, that this is the right decision, and hopefully everybody will get on the right path. And so we just do a lot of things to help basically help them follow through and reflect on those scenarios, and make sure that when they are in that particular situation, that they know what they need to do, and if they don't know what they need to do, they know that they can ask. And so super important in our organization.
Okay, to make it difficult, we're coming all the way back to Marcia.
Oh, we are.
So let's drill down a little further into what you guys have just discussed. So Martha, could you talk, or Marcia, excuse me, could you talk about what WPX seeks in terms of ethics and integrity in those in those employees that you do hire?
Okay.
So be more specific to the hiring.
Okay. So I touched on quite a bit of it in my earlier quotes, so I probably stepped ahead. I'm sorry.
All right.
So what we definitely do is I just came out of a training that was yesterday, situational leadership. We also have situational learning, where it also helps individuals deal with how to respond to each situation, and to review it and look at it. So we do have a lot of training. Going back to the candidates, I think it's another question, but I'll touch on it real quickly. I do find several individuals that will lie on their application just to get their foot in the door, and then once we start drilling down with behavioral-based questions or situational questions, they don't know. For example, we had an individual that we brought in an accounting role, and we asked them, tell us, a situation about a specific joint interest billing system that they had used, because they put it on there. And they said, well, that was 2 years ago, and I don't recall. That's a very specific task, and you're going to know. And so right there, we had to eliminate that person. So we do a lot of behavioral-based, situational-based questions. And with our geoscientists and some of the technicians, we've also learned that we need to ask them to do specific tasks in front of us so that we can see it. So.
Okay.
I think there's a quote, Robert McNamara says, never answer the question asked, answer the one you wish had been asked. So how do you identify these qualifications? Well, for us, we do that in the interviewing process. For us, it's from the very beginning, we want to make sure we set the right expectation for what we're desiring and what we're seeking. And so we'll ask questions that hopefully will give me insight into the character of the individual and what drives them, what do they value, and how do they perceive the world. And because you're not just hiring a person for their competence, you're getting all the baggage that comes with them, and we all have baggage. And so I want to understand, how do they view the world and how do they respond to that behaviorally? And so I'm going to see that through the way they demonstrate behavior through character. And so a lot of the questions we'll ask may seem like trick questions, but they really aren't. I'll ask questions like, have you ever experienced a loss for doing what is right? And please explain. I'll ask them, tell me 3 character strengths that you see within yourself, and tell me 3 character weaknesses that you see within yourself. And how do you mitigate those weaknesses in life? I'll ask them, have you ever asked for forgiveness? And these are interesting questions because they're not the typical questions I think you expect to see on an application or in the interviewing process, but it gives me great insight into the individual. And it's not, I tell them all, it's not a trick question. I just want to see if you understand yourself and you understand how you're behaving and why. And that's really what I'm trying to get to the heart of, because in the end of the day, when we hire them to come in, they're going to be representing our brand. They're going to be representing us to the community, to the public. And we all want to work with people of high integrity. I mean, who wants to work with a thief? You can have all the letters at the end of your name and all the credentialing, but if you're a thief, you're just a skilled thief. You're still a thief. And so we really want to hire people of high moral, high ethical values that identify with our culture. I'll ask them, what are you looking for in a culture? Just this last week, I'm hiring for a position within the HR department, and I was interviewing this young lady, and I asked her, I said, what's the culture that you're looking for? And she says, well, what's your culture? And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. She says, well, if you're like Devin, I can be like Devin. If you're like, and she named other companies, and I said, well, but what do you want to be? And she says, I want to be employed. And she said, I will adapt to be whatever you want that. And I said, I need to know who you are and that you're true to yourself. And are you a good fit for this position? And so, she's an adjunct. She's telling me she's teaching at night at a local school, and I started to engage in these questions of character, and she was so intrigued because she had never considered that. And she's teaching HR professionals who are going to be recruiting, who are going to be hiring, who are looking at perpetuating the organizational design and culture, and she had no sense of what character and how it plays a significant part in success. And so she was writing notes, and the interview switched. She began interviewing me. And I didn't mind because I thought, she gets a light has clicked. And we went through several of the terminations that she recently had been a part of, and she was looking at it as just policy violations. And I said, those are issues of character. And so how do you curb that? How do you address that? And so she was just, it was just great because you could see the light bulb go off. Now, we're not going to hire her. But it was great. It was great. It was a great discussion. But I could see she wasn't ready for the senior level of leadership that I was looking for. But she got it. And I think, man, if this was an entry-level position, I'd love to have brought her on. But I need someone who understands this already from day one.
Good point, good point. When I think about ethics and integrity in our staff, again, I'm going to speak strictly to my 17 people that work in-house, the recruiters, the screeners, the admin professionals that support our business, not as much about the candidates in that case. But, again, because we operate in the gray area, again, we have a lot of opportunity to influence people's job decisions. I really look for people that are focused on the long term. They're not afraid to tell the truth about something because that may cost that candidate that job offer, or they're not afraid to tell the candidate something truthful about the company and the company's culture because that may dissuade the candidate from being interested in having a job there. And so that's probably the key thing that I look for is just someone that, again, is so customer oriented, that understands that ethics and character comes first, because we're in it for the long haul and not just to place this one person with this one company.
I think where this comes into play for us is that we do hire so many management trainees in a year. You've probably seen that we're like one of the top recruiters in the country year after year, because we hire somewhere along the lines of 7,000 to 8,000 management trainees across the country. And so, it can be very difficult in the hiring process to make sure that you're looking for those qualities. And I feel very good about the fact that my recruiters, in most cases, at least in my particular group, all of my recruiters were management trainees, and they worked up into the branch manager position and then became recruiters. And so they know what it's like to be in the role. They know what it's like to make the tough decisions, those types of things. But then when you move them on through the interviewing process and they get to an area manager that is understaffed by, 4 or 5 people, and making sure that they are, staying the line and making sure that they're getting the person that's going to make the right decisions, that has that character, that has that integrity. Sometimes that's really hard when you really need somebody in Ada, Oklahoma, and and you've got one candidate, and you're thinking, I really, really need a person. But having that person really make the decision that they're not the right candidate for this job, and they're not going to represent our company in the way that we want it represented. So I'm going to have to make the hard decision and not pass them on to the regional vice president for a final hiring decision. But I think that that's one of the big things, is that you can make a lot of hiring mistakes in that course, and so it's very important that my recruiters, from the get-go, make sure that when they're passing somebody on, that they have done the behavioral interviewing and made sure they've asked those right questions, so that we're sending on a good candidate that has at least those qualities, and then maybe the area managers can actually look more to the skills and the competencies that it takes really to do the job. But I'm really counting on our recruiters really to kind of identify the integrity and character qualities.
Hold on to it. You're next.
Oh, yeah.
I will add something to what Shad mentioned. In my role within many years at the company, I've hired a lot of folks. Technology, customer service, internal. So our customers are our employees. And a few years ago, a supervisor that reported to me asked me, he says, why do you always ask that question? It has nothing to do with technology or technologists. No, it's what you ask. I want to hear as quickly as you can, right off the top of your head. I don't want you to think about it. What are your 3 strengths and your 3 weaknesses? And I ask strengths first, and then I follow with the weakness. I'm not interested in what their answer is. I'm interested in how quickly they can just be honest with me. And usually strengths will just come right off because they're there to try to impress you. But the employees that I really see some quality in is those that will say, I'm not very good at this, and I've been trying to work on that. And they'll just tell you. And that doesn't feel good as a candidate interviewing. But it tells me that person's being honest. And that tells me something about that person. So. Shannon, you get a couple of questions.
Oh, I do.
And then we'll get to pass it around. So why are these qualities that everyone has just discussed, why are they important to enterprise, and why are they important to your customers or your companies that are external to enterprise that you deal with?
Right. Well, I think it's one of the most important things to us is that we do have many national agreements across the country with very large insurance companies, and I am willing to bet that one of you in this room has rented a car from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, maybe. And I know there have been obviously maybe some bad customer service situations, because I have heard of them, but a majority of the time when somebody rents a car from Enterprise, I have heard time and time again that it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. They remember the person that worked with them. They'll tell me, oh, Kirby out at your downtown office, she did such a great job, took real good care of me. I hear that a lot. And as you can see, our folks are working directly with the customer, and they also go out and they do sales calls and things along those lines. And so, that's really the impression that we want to leave. It's super important that they're building a relationship built on trust and integrity. And if we didn't have that kind of relationship with our customers, I don't think the model that we have today would be sustainable. I really don't think that we would have the kind of reputation that we have out in the community, that we do, have some really good folks that work for us. I think that they live our values that we have in our company, and we depend on that. We depend on them going the extra mile for the customer, and that's asking a lot sometimes. We actually got a complaint the other day because a person said that their manager was making them stay 45 minutes later because they needed to take a customer back to their house and then, obviously come back and close up the store. And she thought it was company policy that we weren't to work after 6 o'clock. And, we were like, that's not company policy. In fact, company policy would say you take the customer home and you come back and you close up. So I think it's kind of funny sometimes what they think are ethical situations, what they think are policies and those types of things. But long and the short of it is that most people that work for Enterprise will tell you, and I'm one of them, I worked for them for 21 years. I started out as a management trainee, and everyone says, why are you still with Enterprise? And I always say the people. It had nothing really to do with, renting out cars or, it was about the people I worked with. It was about the people that I got to know. And so those relationships are super important to us as an organization. And so we have all those people out there building our reputation and our brand. And I think that that's why the character qualities and the integrity that our employees have make it that much more important.
I know Kirby.
You do?
Yes, I do.
She's my recruiter now.
She has served me in 2 or 3 different stores she's worked in. About 3 years ago, I caught Shannon and I said, "Do you have an employee name?" And I said, "That lady is unbelievable. You ought to do something with her." And she said, "Well, as a matter of fact, we're promoting her and moving her into another training opportunity."
I have both of his people. Monica is my trainer, and Kirby is my recruiter.
So I do have some good. It's good to see you promote with him.
We do.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, same couple of questions. Pam, would you like
Okay. Well, I think I already spoke to why those qualities are important to our customers, so I won't say that again. But I would want to add another consideration that I have is why those qualities are important to my internal staff. And from a retention standpoint, why I try to lead by example and why integrity is important to me and my company is just, I think that creates a lot of trust within an organization. And I think that's really important that employees they kind of know what to expect when they come to work. They know what the rules are. They know what their colleagues are going to be doing and how the other people in their office are going to be behaving. And so I like to think of it from that standpoint, in addition to why is it important to our customers and external vendors or companies that we work with.
When I started with Kimray, it was 1997. I was 18. And so this last week marks my 15th anniversary. And I stayed the same. It was the people. And a note I was just jotting down, I want to make sure I didn't forget it, was that people leave people, they don't leave organizations. And so the culture that I'm wanting to protect and to perpetuate is the one that I came into in 97. And I was the 157th employee that year. And now we have about 950 employees. And that turnover rate has been very consistent, even though we've been experiencing growth of about 25 to 30% year over year for the last several years. And we're doing that again this year, and we're projecting that for next year. And so I say, how do I protect the organization, the culture? Because 60% of my workforce has been with us less than 5 years. Now think about that. 60% of my workforce has been with us for less than 5 years. What do you think that does to your culture? And so what's the cost of hiring the wrong person? So I've answered the question a little bit already about why we value the ethics and integrity and character of the individual in the hiring process. But again, when I was hired, the average tenure was 20 years. So the average person I ran into at Kimray had been there for 20 years. Today, it's a little over 7 years. And you say, wow, what's happened? Well, 60%'s been there less than 5 years. We've got a very young workforce, and we have a strange makeup right now. A third millennials, a third baby boomers, a third this is what we're seeing, and we're having, and right now that's causing there's some shift, there's a demographic shift, and it's posing some challenges. But the thing that remains true is that the heart of a relationship is that character, the behaviors that we engage in. There's a character quality that is reflective of what's being demonstrated. And that's what we're looking for to protect, because that's not unique to a baby boomer, it's not unique to a generation Y or X. They understand that. Everyone wants to be treated fairly. We all have an innate sense of fair play, and we know right from wrong. And I know sometimes as academians and teachers and educators, we kind of stay away from the discussion of moral absolutes, that there could be an absolute wrong or right, but it's practical in the business sense, because it's just good business. Either people come back to buy our product or they don't. Either people choose to stay with us as an employer or they don't. And it's reflected in our turnover, our higher absenteeism, our presenteeism. Those things, that's a way of quantifying it that is very hard to just pinpoint exactly what's going on. But you look at the morale of your workforce and you look at the employee engagement, and that's going to tell you something about your culture. Are you doing it right or are you doing it wrong? And if you're doing it wrong, what are you going to do? Because you're going to lose your people. And so for me, I think Kimray's vision, I know, Kimray's vision is to make a difference in the lives of those we serve. And this is a continual goal, and there are terminal goals. So a continual goal is one we'll never achieve completely. How do you achieve completely making a difference in the lives of those we serve? That's something we're always going to pursue. It's like quality. But what you see is not reflected in our vision is to maximize shareholder profits or shareholder wealth or return on equity or maximizing whatever that may be. And those aren't bad things, but that's not our primary goal. We see that as if we are pursuing the continual goal of making a difference in the lives of those we serve, those terminal goals, those secondary things, they'll happen naturally. Because we're either going to gain more market share through our customer service. There's a reason why Chick-fil-A just has exceeded KFC, and they pale in comparison to the number of stores. Well, why is that? I think they value character, and you see that there. So I don't want to just promote that, but I'm saying other companies that get it, that understand the significance of character and competence in equal proportion for the consistency they desire, that's where it's at. And so the companies that really understand that, we have a declining workforce. There was the economic indicator, the study that just came out in June, said that I think it was like 8% reduction in the blue collar in the skilled labor here in Oklahoma. And that's significant. I'm competing for other companies for talent acquisition and talent retention. So it's just good business to hire for integrity and ethics. It really is just good business.
I just had a couple things to add real quickly. In our business, as well as Colin's business, safety is huge, so we really have to hire the right individual that has good integrity to do the right thing all the time, because if they do not do the appropriate thing when they're on a rig or taking measurements, they could really impact somebody's life. It could be a deadly situation. And we also want to make sure we hire the right person, because everyone has said our brand is real critical. Our brand's real critical right now because we've spun off, so we want to make sure that we are WPX Energy. We're not always going to be Williams, right? So, and one other piece of information I'm going to read is we take employment engagement surveys, and I think it goes to show the leadership is a huge piece of it. So I'm going to read this to you. Every 2 years, WPX does an engagement survey. When measuring integrity, employees responded to items targeting their perception of their supervisor, senior leadership, and corporate culture of ethical behavior. Employees consistently responded highly favorable above the market norm. So we're very proud of that. So just wanted to share that.
Very good. Pam? As the owner of a staffing, recruiting, and placement company, what kind of methods and approach do your staff use to identify the type of qualities we're talking about in candidates that you place, not your internal, but your placement candidates?
Right. I really loved what Warren said in his speech he did about how, you could get a different definition of ethics for every person that's in the room. And I think that's very true. And so in preparation for this, I kind of went through and thought about several different, mindsets related to ethics and character. And with regard to our candidates, the thing that really bubbled up to the number one thing, and this may be something that you all can share with your students and as they're planning to enter the workforce, the main thing that we can evaluate in the short time that we have an opportunity to work with a candidate is, their follow through, their reliability, and their dependability. And those are all character traits that everyone wants. From our standpoint, the way we test this is we have a pretty in-depth application process. Most companies do, and ours is no different. We have, HR compliance that we have to adhere to. And so really, you talk to a candidate, they say they're going to send their resume. Well, they say they're going to send it tomorrow. Well, did you get it the next day? That's the first test. Then, there's an application that has to be completed. And they say they're going to do that by X time. Did you get it or not? And those are the kind of things that all through our process, we're evaluating. We set up an interview to meet with them in person and really learn what they're looking for and what their priorities are. Well, did they show up on time, or were they late, or did they call and reschedule it 2 or 3 times before they finally made it in? How they handle all these steps really speaks to their motivation level, it speaks to their engagement, and then it most importantly speaks to their respect of the recruiter's time that's working with them. Because every time they call and cancel an appointment and reschedule it, it's just burning time for my staff to be handling that. And so those are probably the first things that we really look for. The other thing is just trying to use behavioral interviewing. I know several people here have talked about that, and finding out, how they handle difficult situations, and asking them, how did you handle a situation that was really frustrating? And again, to Colin's point, I think we're not really looking for what the answer is, but we're looking for how they answer it. Are they honest and sincere in what they say? Because that honesty level really tells us a lot about how they're going to interact with us and how confident we can be referring them to our client at that point.
I don't own a staffing company.
Can you apply it in enterprise?
Yeah, I think I can. I think I had a thought here a second ago, but I think I lost it. I think that those are some important things. And one of the things, too, is that, when we use behavioral interviewing questions, I love the honesty in a person when they say, I haven't had that situation. And I would much rather have them say that to me than have them make something up and I keep probing and kind of figuring out that, I'm thinking this really didn't happen that way, or I get all the way to the end of something and they say, well, I went and asked my boss, what I should do, kind of thing. And so, really didn't handle it completely on their own kind of thing. But, I believe in the I think a lot of what Pam had to say is very true in our organization as well. I think that dependability, the reliability, the accountability, those are all things that we're looking for. And I do think the way that somebody represents themselves in an interview, or just the way that they contact you, they don't contact you, even internally, we experience those situations where an employee might, apply for a promotion, and they don't send in their packet on time, or they don't show up to the interview on time, and that's an internal candidate. That's somebody that already works for us, and this is the way that they are not respecting the person that's going to be interviewing them. It really reflects poorly on them, on their preparedness, for that opportunity, and really, frankly, it ends up being a waste of that person's time, because they're not going to choose them for this promotion because already things have fell through the cracks. And so I think that, the preparation and just the pure motivation, like you talked about, you really want to see sincerity in somebody when they really are wanting to work for our company, and you want to see it also when they're, looking for advancement opportunities within our company. And reliability, accountability, attendance, timeliness, all of those things I think are super important. I've said super important 19 times, I know.
Same question.
If you have any comments, feel free.
Kimray has a simple business model, and that is you take care of the customer, you take care of the shareholder, and you take care of the employee. And if you do that in equal proportion, then you have the stability for good business. And that's the model that we have used. I know in my personal life, what I have found, just in my ascent in management, from coming from the guy pushing a broom on the floor, which is just kind of how you start at Kimray, to setting policy and making decisions that impact a lot of lives, is that it has been, as I've advanced in my career, it has been less about what I know, although business is fundamental at its core, and more about how I relate to others and manage relationships. And so for me, it's that I've been served well by my persuasiveness, the hospitality, the humility, truthfulness, sincerity, deference. Those things have served me equally as well, if not more well, than just the basic knowledge, skills, and abilities. And at the executive level, I hate to admit this, but I use maybe 10% of my MBA for what I actually do, and about 90% is just relationship. Between the executives and the board. Well, I want to make sure that as we bring in people that we desire to invest in and to develop and to move up within the organization, that at the core, if they've got the right character, I can take the farm boy from Nebraska and teach him the skills that he needs. But if I hire somebody who's a thief, again, they're just a skillful thief, regardless of their credentialing. And that is significant. I could have never, looking at my own life, I could have never said I charted a course and I knew what I was going to do it and I did it my way. That's just not true. I sought preparedness and opportunity came. I didn't seek opportunity and then hope I could get preparedness. And I do think I see a difference in some of the new employees that we've hired in that they want opportunity and they haven't sought the preparedness yet. And so we're tackling that. One of the departments I think I failed to mention was training. I'm overtraining. I'm saying, how do we tackle this? The millennials, they don't want a structured environment like the baby boomers did in going to a classroom, instructor-led training. They want projects that they're working on in real time, and they want the position before they're ready. And what do we do with that? I was in a conference in Orlando just a few weeks ago, and I was with an executive from Deutsche Bank, and he was telling me that they're having the same trouble. I was telling him the issues we've got with blue-collar, skilled labor, and he says, we can't find the young, articulate individual who's going to jump on a plane at a moment's notice and go wherever we need them to go in the world. And we're finding it's an issue of character. It's not competence, and it's just they have these desires of what they want. They're not willing to put in what's necessary. And so they're not developing those things. Great knowledge and skills, that's what I'm seeing when we interview people. They can speak theoretically to why they are the most appropriate for the position based on the responsibilities. But when I come to the discussion about character, that's where I see some struggling. They aren't sure how that contributes to their achievement. Because they've worked so hard from what the world's perspective of this is how you achieve it. You get the credentialing and then the doors will open. But it's character that will keep you employed, even though it's the competencies that get you the interview.
I just had real quick. Basically, it comes down to do what you say you're going to do and follow through with it. So that's all I have.
Okay. Would you address this question for us? So,
Let's see what it is.
Chad, you touched on a few points that let's expand on that. For our educators, we strive many, we stress many things to our students, but they're driven to have a good GPA, right? And results oriented in their projects in class and with other teammates and competitions and so forth. So that's what we kind of ingrain in them, and now all of a sudden they're getting hit with this stuff about integrity. So as an HR recruiter, then how do you weigh or balance that in your recruiting process between students that are coming in for that first job and they're able to show you that I've done all these things accomplishment-wise on GPA, civic organizations and school organizations, and how do you weigh that with integrity, qualities that you're looking for?
Okay. So we have two different programs. We have our interns that I think GPA is more critical on versus some of the individuals who already have work experience. So I'll touch on the interns real quick. We do use GPA sometime as an eliminator because we have so many, but we also like to look and see what involvement they have to see if they have integrity or if they are just going to be job hoppers. I like this a little bit, I like this a little bit. Are they going to have the commitment and experience that we need? For our regular employees, we're more concerned with their output, their results, what have they been doing. I would love to see, like I said earlier, people that have been involved on the Ethics Bowl. I have had some individuals where they will hold down 2 or 3 different jobs and be going to school trying to get that work experience. So I think, at least in my opinion, the GPA is more critical in an internship than the others. I have worked with several individuals who just graduated from school this summer, some at WPX, some not at WPX, and I have to say that I was so excited that they had the follow through. They had the initiative. All 3 of these individuals worked while they were going to school. They came and they were not afraid to ask questions. I'm quite a bit older than them, although I don't look like it, but I'm quite a bit older than them. And they were not afraid to ask and to go to somebody who had been in the workforce and get their opinion instead of just going off what they hear, what they find on the internet. So they were open to coming to an experienced recruiter and asking them.
Any other comments toward that?
Well, I guess I think if I was going to restate the question to say what could teachers do to better prepare the students to enter into the workplace, And I've written this out because I want to make sure I don't offend any of the professors here, because this is where I went to school. And Dr. Hall here is one of my leadership professors from in my 2010 class. And so we had an interesting discussion at lunch, and it was great to catch up. I went to lunch yesterday with another one of my mentors, Dr. Meller, and we have kept up since graduate school. And I told him, I said, I'm going to criticize your ethics class. I said, but I love you, and I want you to know where it's coming from. And he says, I wish I could teach this again, because I would teach it differently today than the way I taught it 4 years ago when you went through the program. And so I said, well, I would have answered questions much more differently now with the experience that I've had. But I think my experience in the MBA program was typical of many programs. We studied how to read and prepare financials, build business cases. We studied economics, accounting, finance, leadership, technology, organizational design and theory, operation and supply management, and ethics. And that was pretty much what rounded up my experience in the program. Through all this, we're told that there are 3 primary points of view to consider in making business decisions: the economic, the legal, and the moral point of view. Yet, in my program, I only had 1 course in ethics for 1 semester. And so if that's an equal weight in the decision-making process, why is it in the business programs, are we not spending as equal amount of time in developing the ethical point of view, that integrity, the discussion of character and how it interplays with relationships and the behaviors that are engaging? When we've all seen highly competent people, look at the leaders that we've seen fall in the last several years, and it's just since '99. And the regulatory compliance that's come as a result of that, those ethical lapses. And I'd argue it's not a lack of competence. These are really competent people who made really bad decisions. But what did we do to prepare them before they went into the workforce to not make those decisions once they had the tools to know how? And we talked about it here, which is the opportunity and motive. Internal controls is what you need to instill and have in place. But that's just really mitigating a symptom. The deeper root cause is again, to me, it's going back to that discussion of character. So I think that's really at the heart of what character is, that relationship, and that's so key. And I think that's where we lack in developing that business sense. I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox on how to do business, but not enough questions were asked about, well, why do you do business in the first place? And what that moral point of view, where are you coming from as you're looking at increasing that return on equity? How are you going to achieve that? Because there's a lot of ways to maximize profits. It can be at the expense of your people, the expense of the public, or the customer. And so I think those are the things that if I would have done in my 1 course of ethics, I didn't find it very applicable in my life because we studied utilitarianism, Kantian theory, egalitarian. Those things were great, except I've never needed that. Where in business, I've actually quoted that as I'm writing somebody up for stealing, or for what they've done behaviorally in business. And I think those things are great, but it wasn't made practical enough for me to conceptualize that to a point that I recognized the behaviors I was engaging in, how they impacted relationally those around me. And I think that's where I didn't have the disconnect. Great theoretical discussion, but it wasn't practical enough for me. And I don't know, I wish I could tell you what it is that you need to do to make that transition from being one of a very theoretical and great philosophical discussion to one of practicality. And that's where I think the beauty and the simplicity of, for me, just to stick with character qualities. I can talk about thoroughness, deference, wisdom, discernment, discretion, sensitivity. Those things, I can talk about that with great ease. I have a harder time explaining egalitarian theory. I still struggle with it. Dr. Hall and I were talking about that, and he says he's still struggling with it. It made me feel better. But that's probably my take is how do we make, and my challenge then would be to the educators in the room, how do you make the study of ethics and integrity practical to the business world once they leave the walls of academia?
Do we want to kind of just stick on that as far as, just recommendations for students?
I had another question that you kind of led us into, which is, are there any insights that you could share with the educators that would help them prepare those students for that first career job? So we've kind of headed that way.
And that's kind of what Shad started on, so that got me thinking in that vein as well. I think the problems that we see, especially in my business, which is a very people-driven business. So granted, I don't employ in my internal staff a lot of scientific professionals that are sitting in a cubicle doing computer programming or engineering that don't really have a need to communicate with someone. So what I see is we live in such a digital age now, a lot of the kids, the students coming out of college, very often have grown up with Facebook and texting, and I just see a deficit of relational communication skills. They would rather deal with conflict through email. They would rather, text someone, and I just see them avoiding it a lot of times. And I have, people that I've worked with that I see that they can develop those skills, but they're 30 a lot of times by the time they develop them. And I think, wow, what a shame. If they had been 25 and had this, this ability to deal with conflict or to deal with confrontation without having to do it in a digital way, being able to sit down and talk it out or have a conversation with someone, they'd be so much farther ahead. So that and I don't know how that can be changed. That's just the society we live in, but that's my thought on it.
All right. I hate to do this because we're on a roll, but I've let us run long. So real quick, are there any questions from the floor? Yes.
I teach freshmen through graduate students at faith-based institutions. So fortunately, most of them come to us with a certain level of character. So my question to you, with my freshman class, each one of you give me one sentence answer. What's one thing that they could do through college to develop their character so that they have it when they get to you? So I get them when they're 18. What's one thing they could do to develop the character, the skill?
The opening prayer to St. Francis, which is seek to understand more than to be understood. If they would just spend the time to really get to know somebody. I tell you, early on in my career, and I know this is not the one word, but I tell you, if I don't have my notes, I just go long. I served as a chaplain. And I think there was nothing better to prepare me for business and what I'm doing now as an executive than sitting at the deathbeds of employees or when their children were being born. Nothing prepared me for management more than that time. I wish I could say it was the business school, it was these things. It was relationship. And the experience I had in the 7 years I served as chaplain for Kimray, it's difficult when you do a funeral for an employee. So you're there for the biggest moments of life and the worst moments of life. And you realize the one thing you have in common is we'll all be touched by those things in life. And it's such that relationship. So the thing I think they could do is really seek to understand more than to be understood.
I would say figure out what industry or what area you want to go into and start networking and becoming a student involved in the professional organizations and community involvement to start also building that network, get some information on your resume. So I would say community involvement and start networking.
I agree with both of those things, and just still have to go back to what I said a few minutes ago, that it's relational, and as much as they can stay away from the digital and communicate with their peers and their teachers and anybody, even family members for that matter, by talking things out. I think that's really a key thing that we're missing out on.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I was actually getting ready once we kind of went to the next question, but kind of the same thing that she was talking about. We deal with that too because, our folks are expected to build those relationships with our customers, with our accounts, and we do struggle with that same thing. I think one of the things, though, that I think is one of the most important things is just to I know you can't expect someone to know what they want to do exactly when they're a freshman, but I do think getting some type of experience, even if it's, it's working on campus or, getting involved in a community organization or just anything to help them get more involved with what they're going to be involved with eventually. Because I think that if they're involved in organizations, especially professional organizations outside of campus, some more of the professional organizations, they might actually find themselves in some of these scenarios that they're going to deal with in life, and they might have to make some difficult decisions. And I think putting them in that position is the best way sometimes to figure it out.
Excuse me. Doesn't Strata Leadership offer a program, Character First program for educators? I think it does. And do you want me to pass those out for you?
Certainly.
No, you did a great job, so please don't take that. This was developed by Strata Leadership, and it is something that educators can use, and it's something that you can practice in your classrooms with your students. that might be helpful to them. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to jump on people.
I was going to also add, setting up a LinkedIn profile to me is, I know we're talking about social media, but LinkedIn profile is what I go to, and I found several temporary positions for college students, and that's where I found them on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Dr. Ellis.
Yeah, I had a question. There are a lot of themes here that I really like, and I'm trying to learn more about a bunch of that sort of stuff and apply it to my classes. But the sort of notions of relationships on the job and sort of character development through peers, the way in which a situation can go south if you get the wrong person in there. I was wondering, and I have a good story about Kimray, which I'll share later as my testimonial for this. But I know that some companies do, in a way, sort of a character modeling that I think really works well. So I was wondering, sort of what do people do with that? So let me tell you my Kimray story to give you an example. I have a master's student who just finished this semester, defended his master's thesis, who works on the floor at one of your Kimray things. So he usually comes to me, like he's been moving equipment all day and stuff. But I know that you have a sort of like a college support program, for example. So he's a fantastic guy who is interested in ethics and basically writing on some topics in ethics. And I know that he found it very easy to deal with his employment when he needed to sort of come see me in the evenings and stuff. So that's an example, but there must be lots of ways in which you guys sort of like model the relational concern for your employees and stuff. So toot your own horn here for a minute so I can tell my students about good practices that way.
Since you use Kimray,
Yeah,
I'm going to jump in there
first, yeah.
to build on that. What a great opportunity. Really, again, I go back to what's motivating the organization and what you're trying to do. If you're looking at these as programs to maximize profits, then it's the wrong motivation. But for us, we really see that if we rise the tide, all the ships rise together. And so for us, it's that employer value proposition, and that if the IRS allows a maximum of $5,250 annually to be used for tuition reimbursement, and we'll pay 100% of a graduate program, depending on where they're at in the organization and what their long-term goals are. But that's annually. So, for us, we recognize, I don't care what you're getting a degree in, you're going to help us. It's going to be mutually benefiting the more educated. I want the most educated workforce we can have. And so if that means your ultimate long-term goal is going to lead you to leave Kimray because you want to be orchestra conductor, more power to you. I think that's great. But while you're with us, you're helping us achieve our goals. And that's an investment into the community. On a personal note about this, Kimray, when I started, they gave me, they only paid for courses that directly applied to what you did. I changed that rule. I said, I don't care. But I did it, and you know what it did? I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, very in a very impoverished home. I married up greatly. I advise that to everyone. That's the other thing they can do is marry up. And I had a father who invested in me, and because of that, I thought, this will completely change for generations what my daughter is going to experience because of that investment from another. And he would happen to be the CFO at Kimray. And he did, and that was great. He said, if I wanted to date his daughter, I had to be in school. So he took me and enrolled me at OCCC, and that's where I began just kind of doing that. I didn't have any direction in life, and he gave that to me. But to me, those type policies, while that was an individual who poured directly into me, I can have policy corporately that has social impact, and I can change generations. And so that's where that comes from, and that we have targeted charter schools, Aztec charter school, because what impressed me is they have some students who have to take 5 buses to get to school every day because they don't receive federal funding for transportation. So there's no busing. So these kids are kids who want to be learning, and the majority of their students are from Hispanic populations. And so they're going to quit about 9th grade to go into the family business. And I thought, man, that could have been me. And so what I have done is, I'll tell you what, any of your students who have proven themselves academically and through good character, I'll hire them on in summer once they hit 16, and upon graduation, I'll hire them full time, and they'll have the opportunity to go to college. So, I feel very passionate about that. Changed my life.
That's great. So the question again was, what do we do
Just
to...
sort of, how do you, from the management side, sort of model the sort of character stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of what Shad said. It's just about, putting your people first. And in my company, I've tried to do that through, we're a small company, but we've always tried to offer really good benefits. And, we've been probably more competitive with larger companies in terms of the benefits that we offer. In addition to that, there's so many things you can do, like flex time. That doesn't really cost the company anything as long as you have a way to manage productivity and that sort of thing. So, those are the things that I think really show that you care about the people, which says, that's an it's just a character quality. So,
I think one of the things that we really, I still think we struggle with a little bit is work-life balance. I have a boss that, he is a man of great integrity. He has great character. You can't speak an ill word about him, but he is also a 32-year employee of Enterprise Rent-A-Car and, began, in the beginning with us, when we were growing quite drastically, but he's kind of still in that belief that the more hours you work, the more you get accomplished. And we don't really kind of live in that world anymore. In fact, we're almost the other way, that you're usually more productive the less hours you work, for a lot of us, I think. And so that's been something that I've had to really kind of help him along with, to try to really to get him to sort of calm down a little bit. It got to one of those things where somebody left at like 5:45, he'd give them kind of the evil eye, and we'd be like, it's okay, they're an exempt employee, they just drove to Shreveport last night and came back the next day, so, but that's one of the things I think that, we're trying very hard to get, him and some of the folks that have been with us a long time to get to that point of flexibility, because I think that's so important today for our employees to have more flexibility. And it's, so I try to elude that when I, with my own employees, and when, I know like one of our, managers is on vacation, I try to make sure that I say, hey, have a good vacation, enjoy yourself, don't worry about a thing, everything's going to be fine. And I just try to do that because I know my boss probably isn't going to. So, he's going to be like, who's covering for you? No, yeah, don't show this to Jack.
I think we're probably going to find out.
Yeah, okay.
I was just going to add real quick, what we do have is we do try to put tools in their toolbox. So when they leave, we do have a colors class that helps them deal with different personalities they identify, so self-identification type situations. We have another one, speed of trust, and you do a 360 before you go in, and it's very enlightening. And then what I talked about earlier, situational leadership, so you can kind of identify your leadership styles and what situation you should change with them. We also have a lead program where we identify certain individuals in the organization that could potentially move up, so succession planning. And our wellness program is phenomenal. We've had so many people get healthier, and their work-life balance is so great.
So, thank you, panelists, for taking your time to come today.